So I was on Twitter the other day, or rather someone asked me a question on Twitter, two questions, and I answered them pretty detailed, in a pretty detailed fashion, and I thought the answers were worth actually sharing on a podcast. So that's what I'm actually going to do today. I'm going to take two questions that I got asked, tell you the replies, and then expand upon them more than I did on Twitter. Obviously on Twitter you can only write so much, so in this podcast I'll deep dive into them. So here's the two questions. This guy named Sam asked me. He said, Anthony, two questions. One, greatest lesson learned at Jakt. Two, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently? And so I'll just read you off my reply that I literally, stream of consciousness on Twitter. Twitter is very, just what are your thoughts right away? And so I'll give you my answers, and then we can dive into the details on them. So here's what I said. I said, this is first in reply to number one, which was greatest lesson learned at Jakt. I said, there's no single greatest lesson. Business is a game that has constant learning. That said, here's some things I've learned. And then I just did a bunch of bullet points here, in no particular order. Sales cures all is not just a saying, there's some real truth behind it. If you own the top of the funnel, you are in control. People and culture are how you scale. You must develop personally and grow as a leader/manager, or else you will single-handedly block the growth of your company. Hiring an executive coach has massive ROI. Take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. It really is a marathon, even though at times you can barely see past the day ahead. Having a great product and slash service and amazing customer service is vital. Leaky buckets suck where you have new revenue coming in, but your churn is high, so the new revenue just replaces revenue leaving. Look at your business like a machine comprised of various systems. Your job as a CEO is to design the machine. You aren't that special. Hire people and get out of their way. Stop holding on trying to do everything yourself. You are that special. That's why you took on this challenge and did it successfully. So those were my answers to the greatest lesson I learned at Jakt, which is really a series of lessons. And then to the second question, I'm just pulling up my the tweet really quick. So the second question said, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently? So, and here was my response. I said, in reply to number two, I'm glad I went through everything I did because that's how I learned. But knowing what I know now, I'll tell you what I am doing differently when building Pulpo Finance. And again, bullet points, no particular order. Staying super narrow with our target customer and offering. It's very difficult to scale your sales, marketing system, and production system if you offer too many things to too many people. It's much more repeatable, predictable, and efficient to stay narrow. Next, finding a repeatable marketing sales channel earlier. Designing the sales process to not rely on me early on. Focusing earlier on really nailing the customer experience. Not adding clients too fast that it breaks the machine. Because I understand the design of the machine so clearly now, I am designing it from day one to work really well. Not just scaling with more people, but scaling with systems, processes, tools, automation, from the start. Instilling a high accountability culture from day one. Not trying to do everything myself. Hiring the best people, only 8 players in the early days. Delegating and staying focused on what I can uniquely do, and only those things. Enjoying the journey more from the start. Smiley face. So that's, again, those are what I said to knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently? And, off the top of my head now, I could probably add a bunch of things, but let's stay focused on what I said. So, you could, in theory, end the episode just there. Take those learnings from those two things, start applying them to your business. But what I'm going to do, since we are an audio form and podcast, I am going to now deep dive a little bit more into each one of these. So let's go back to the first one, right? And this was the question about greatest lessons learned, and I had a series of lessons. So let's just go one by one through them. I think there's like 11 or 12 here. So the first one I said, sales cures all is not just a saying. There's some real truth behind it. So yeah, I mean, you've probably heard this saying before, right? Sales cures all. What does that even mean? I never even understood it. I didn't get it, right? Until it got to the point where I ran into a bunch of issues and sales was the cure, right? Not enough customers to pay my people. Sales is the cure. We just lost a client. Sales is the cure, right? Time and time again, sales cures a lot. It gives you that freedom, that runway, right? If you have a bunch of customers, right, people knocking at your door, you're not really worried. You can want to turn down customers. Sales cures all, right? Like if you have everyone lining up, you're like, okay, well, this customer I want to fire. Well, if you have more people because of sales, you can actually do that. It gives you options, right? Versus if you don't have sales, you're in not a great position, right? You don't have enough money to pay your people. You might have to let people go. You can't fire that customer that's really being a burden on your team, sucking all that time and energy, right? And so sales really cures all, and then brings you more revenue, which then also, by the way, that means you can hire more people, build your team, grow your company, right? There's so many reasons why having that sales engine is so important. Number two, if you own the top of the funnel, you are in control. So what do I mean by this? When you think about the sales and marketing engine, right? Marketing, right? It's a funnel. You might have heard this before, right? A funnel where you have a bunch of leads, and then you have to close those leads, right? And if you own the top of the funnel, essentially the lead source, right? You're in control, right? Versus if someone else controls that, you then they're in control, right? You either then have to pay them, right? But you don't want to be dependent on one person, right? So for example, if you're getting a lot of leads from one source and that source goes away, you're not in control. They're in control. They have all the leverage, right? So the idea is, one, own the top of the funnel. And if you can't do that, two, make sure that you're not dependent on just one person or company or lead source, right? Think of it just like customers. You don't want to have customer concentration. You don't want to have lead source concentration. So that's another one. All right, next one. People and culture are how you scale. Okay, so I didn't know this when I started. This is how I always look at it. Sales is how you initially scale your business. You get to a certain point. That'll get you to a certain level, 500,000, a million, depending on the industry, right? You can literally just sell a bunch and you will be good for a little bit. But then you'll hit a point where the business is not scaling. You can't get past a certain level. What I learned was that it was people and culture. That's how you get to that next level. Finding the right people, delegating to those people. Those people help shape your entire organization. You can't do it alone, right? So the right people is really important. Not just people, but the right people. And then culture is really important, because if you don't build that culture in as you grow, culture is always there, whether you intended it or not. It's forming, right? So you want to build in the culture that's going to take you to the levels that you want. And so that's what I learned, right? And I touched on it in some other points, high accountability, whatever it is, right? But you want to establish that culture and be a guardian of it, right? Because that's the right people in the right culture will take you to those next levels. That's what I found, right? I went through some experiences where a lot of people left my company. Culture was very bad, toxic, and it led to a lot of problems. But getting the people and the culture right, is really, really a little secret there, and building a bigger company, lasting company, one that you can scale. Okay, so next one. You must develop personally and grow as a leader / manager, or else you will single-handedly block the growth of your company. So that's a really important one. So I actually think that was a big reason why we didn't, there's people and culture I just mentioned, but me not growing as a person and as a leader and as a manager, definitely hindered our growth, right? When you're a smaller company, maybe you're doing a couple million in revenue, or you're doing less or whatever it is, like you're very dependent on the CEO and the founder, right? And at that moment, if you as a CEO and the founder aren't growing as fast as your company, right, you will hinder that growth, right? This is what happens in companies. Are the people in your company growing as fast as the company, right? And if not, it's going to hold back the company. So you either have to remove them or they need to grow. Same thing with you as a CEO, right? If you don't develop yourself as a person, as an individual, as a manager, as a leader, you will actually put a cap on the growth of the business, right? Because everything stems from the top and you're at the top. So that's something I've been working on for 2-3 years heavily. And doing that has definitely unlocked more growth. So, if things are stalling, things aren't working in your company, look internally, see if it's you that's actually blocking it, right? Take a real look in the mirror, and then get the help you need. And this leads to the next point. Hiring an executive coach has a massive ROI, right? This is what I did. I realized, hey, I don't know all the answers. I'm blocking, I don't know what I don't know. I feel like I'm not growing where I need to be. Hired an executive coach, right? This was transformational for me. A couple years ago, a few years back, hired an executive coach, and it changed the game for me. I came in saying, I can't grow the business, help me with the business. Turns out it was actually this point above, not developing myself personally and growing as a leader. That's actually what we worked on more than anything. Developing myself as a person and as a manager, as a leader, as a CEO. That's what unlocked the growth. It wasn't what I was expecting working on with an executive coach, but that's what did it. So massive ROI, very, very cheap, for the right people. And now this is also what I'm doing with other people, because I realized it had such a big impact on me. So now I'm also, now coaching other people, right? Giving back, running the service-based business community, right? It's just everyone. I believe everyone should have a coach. My coach has a coach. I have a coach. I coach people, right? It's like, if you believe in growth and having someone else there who's been there and done that, and can really help you, give you that mirror that you trust, it can be very helpful, right? So, hiring a coach, massive, and it's paid, by the way. This isn't like, a lot of people don't think it's worth the money or don't want to pay for it. Like, just pay it. I'm telling you, with the right person, it is so worth it. Okay, next point. Take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. It really is a marathon, even though at times you can barely see past the day ahead. Yeah, so this is an important one, right? When you're starting up the business, you're like, just how do I survive? Right? And then you push yourself. I just need to work more hours. I need to, maybe this is you, maybe it's not. This was me at least. I'm gonna work 16 hours, 18 hours. I'm not gonna sleep that much. I really saw it as just like, and then going. And then I was like, I was young when I started the business. I was 22, I think, around then. Thought I could just keep going over and over. A lot of coffee, right? And not taking care of myself, just pushing. I was like, I don't know how people, I'm just gonna outlast everyone. I'm gonna keep doing this for the next 30 years. Reality is like, that's just naive. And I know that now. So I very much care about myself mentally, emotionally, and physically. Especially on the mentally and emotionally part. Physically, I was always pretty good at, besides minus the sleep, but like working out, eating healthy, that really affected my body and my performance. The emotional and mental side was not something I focused on. I would just keep pushing through, not dealing with things that were happening, mental things, emotional things, went through depression, anxiety, a lot of stuff that was just never addressed. And being in the right mental and emotional state and physical state, and managing your energy is really, really important. It really is a marathon. So, just think about that and really focus on it. Okay, next one. Having a great product / service and amazing customer service is vital. Yeah, so this one's just so important, right? Even if you've heard this before and you might think it, like, it is just so important. Having a great product and service and then the customer service is so important. to success, to customer retention, to referrals, to everything, right? But especially like, you know, if the product or service isn't good, people aren't going to stay, right? Then you're just gonna have people leaving, right? It will lead to a leaky bucket, which we'll touch on in a second. And then having amazing customer service, client service, right? Like, what is that customer experience like? That's why they're really staying there, right? Like, it's especially with agencies and service businesses, like, it's a people game, right? So really focus on that product and service and amazing customer service. Next up, leaky buckets suck when you have new revenue coming in, but your churn is so high, so the new revenue just replaces revenue leaving. Yeah, so this one I've definitely had, right? Revenue's coming in, revenue's going out. Keep selling, but can never gain momentum because I had a leaky bucket. Customers leaving, retention sucks. So what do you have? You have new customers in like the top of the bucket, and then you have a little hole at the bottom, and customers are leaving. So then your revenue never builds. Worst case, you're losing customers faster than you're gaining, and then you have a negative. Revenue goes down each month, right? What you really want is really good customer retention, and then anytime you're selling, you're adding on, right? Super important. Okay, next one is. Look at your business like a machine comprised of various systems. Your job as a CEO is to design the machine. So I didn't really understand this when I started out, right? But now I see it, it's very clear to me, right? I take a 10,000 foot view and look at your company, right? Even if it's only one or two people right now, look at where it will be. Look at your business and think of it like a machine with a bunch of systems, right? And these systems all work together to operate the business. Right, and when you take that 10,000 foot view, looking down on your business, you see it's just a bunch of systems, and your job is to architect all those systems so that they work beautifully together, and form the business. So that's really important. Is and that's when and maybe for me talking about this, working on the business versus in the business, on the business, designing that machine. That's what it really is. So it's super important to look at it. Like a machine, and look at all the systems and how they work together, and then design those. Next one, you aren't that special. Hire people and get out of their way. Stop holding on, trying to do everything yourself. Yeah. So like, look, the reality is like you may think, oh, I can't delegate this thing. I can't hire for this thing. Like no one can do it as good as me, or whatever. Right? Like you aren't that special. Right? Like there's other people out there that can do a great job. Hire them, delegate, get out of their way. You should actually find people better than you at certain things, right? You're not going to be the best, right? Let go of it. You're not that special, all right? And that's just the truth of it, right? So important to know. I had to really realize this. Like, look, there's people out there better than me. Let me go find them. Build this team. At the same token, to the next point I make, you are that special. That's why you took on this challenge and did it successfully, right? Like, at the same time, you don't want to go the opposite, which is like, well, I'm not special at all. No, you are, right? And know this, if you're building a business, you're still in business, it's fucking hard, and you know that, right? There's not many people who would take on that challenge, right? And so, at the same time, appreciate yourself, not in an asshole way. It's just like, look, I am special. Let me acknowledge that, and there's things that I can do that other people can't, and that's why you're in the position. That's why you are the CEO running the business, right? And know that, and you get more confident over time. The more you're in business, the more money your company makes, etc. You start getting more and more confident in that, right? But it's important to know that and to acknowledge yourself at times, because it's something that I don't think a lot of us CEOs and founders do. It's a fine balance. You aren't special, but you are special. Pulling from both ends there. So that's the last one there.
Bye.